Reverend JJ, back at the Lotus Lounge. I hope everybody's hanging in and doing okay. Dealing with all the crazy going on. So it's Saturday. I thankfully have no appointments scheduled, so I'm going to just take a chill day. I haven't done an episode in a few days. I think we're almost close to a week. I kind of needed to take some time to process and just kind of, regroup and make sure that I'm okay. So I'm doing my own self-care as I preach to everyone about continuing to do that for themselves. So I'm also going to be a role model for that. So I did an episode and delving into the darkness, and that was a really difficult episode. You can even hear that I had my own emotional upset, turmoil. Some tears were shed, and that was not an easy episode to bring to the table here. So I wanted to shift gears and address some of the other mental health things. I hope you enjoyed my first episode, Season 3, Episode 1, and that was depression symptoms and how we come to assessing and giving these, so-called labels. But, as a therapist and a counselor, sometimes we have to remember that I don't want to label an individual. I try to look at the symptoms and see what we can do to treat those symptoms. And we also want to remember that we're not victims to circumstance, that you're not a victim in your life. And I think oftentimes we get kind of wrapped up in that victimization and victimhood. And I really want to implore you to think about more of a survivor. It's definitely something that we talk about in dealing with trauma, so we can come to some resolutions and healing. And it's really about going within. We're not seeking happiness or less anxiety from outside of yourself. Okay? They're not the external circumstances that are creating who you are as a person. It doesn't matter how much money you have, cars, houses, whatever. Those things are just material things. It's just stuff. Stuff doesn't create who you are as an individual. So I really encourage you to think about, what is your identity? Who are you? Because you're not your job. You're not even your name. So all of these things that are outside of you, all those things are not going to bring you to happiness and peace. The only way we get there is by going deep within and addressing the painful emotions. So we all want to be comfortable. Most people don't enjoy dealing with uncomfortable feelings. We want to stuff them down and pretend like they're not even happening. So that's how healing will be deterred. And this is what I feel like I am here for, is to go into the darkness and assist you to come out into the light. So I don't have all the answers. I never claim to. I'm not saying I do. But I'm a guide to assisting you in finding your own healing, happiness, and peace. But it's up to you to want it. It's up to you to do the work. Okay, I'm not here to do the counseling work for you. It takes work on your part. So I wanted to talk some about anxiety and panic today and discuss some of the symptoms and the things that we're looking for specifically when addressing a diagnosis. Okay, so keep in mind that diagnoses are primarily utilized because of insurance. I have my own private practice and I don't deal with insurance. I don't bill insurance companies. I don't want to have anything to do with insurance. They're not going to dictate my treatment. They're not going to dictate what I'm doing with my clients. When you're dealing with insurance, oftentimes they have a set amount of sessions that you're allotted. Sometimes there are certain things that are not covered. So I don't deal with insurance. And I don't find that to be productive. In the past, when I had worked, billing insurance and everything, for example, Medicaid, which most people have, you're allowed 26 sessions for the fiscal year. So the fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th. So you're only allowed 26 sessions. So that basically means, there's 52 weeks in the year, 26 sessions, that's half a year. So if you had weekly sessions in billing Medicaid with a counselor, after 6 months, according to the insurance company, you're cured. So they're saying that you're allowed 6 months of treatment, and after 6 months, you should be better. So these two are also kind of things that are designed so that way there isn't dependence created on counseling. You're not supposed to be in therapy forever. I'm not sure where this idea came from that counseling is permanent. Okay, I'm not a permanent fixture in your life. And what I see as my role in healing is to assist in processing the feelings and the emotions that are upsetting and provide guidance and tools that you put into practice. And when I talk about tools, I'm referring to the 6 things in life that we all need for balance. I discussed that in a prior episode. Okay, tools such as positive thinking, positive affirmations, deep breathing, yoga, meditation, social support, engaging with others, exercise, prayer, connection to God and spirit, being creative, using your skills and talents, expressing yourself in a way that is productive, right? Those are positive coping skills. And then we have negative coping skills: drinking, doing drugs, being promiscuous, sleeping all day, not eating, cutting, self-injurious behavior. Okay, those are negative coping skills. So when somebody comes to see me, I have certain interventions that I try to do right from the very beginning. And I usually start out with relaxation, and then we delve into the cognition. What are you saying to yourself? What is your script in your mind? What do you think about yourself and your life? And again, these are your belief systems, right? So we get stuck in believing that what we're thinking is real. And in all actuality, oftentimes what we are thinking is not true, right? It's negative self-talk. So when you're beating yourself up and you're saying mean and hateful things to yourself, that's not the reality of your identity. That's not the reality of who you are. So I really try to not come up with a label, but I want to identify the emotion, right? Anxiety is a feeling, but we've created it into a label, and it's become people's identity. You are not your anxiety. You are not your depression. You are not your trauma. There is so much more, and that's what I work on, helping my clients strive for, to find within themselves. So again, we're going within. Deep breath. So I have anxiety. I think most people have high anxiety, especially with the current state of the world. So often anxiety stems from fear, fear of unknown, fear of failure, fear of what might happen. Anxiety can also be a catalyst for change. So some levels of anxiety are healthy. Chronic anxiety will kill you. We can tell and see what's happening within the body when somebody's feeling anxious or nervous or scared. Okay, so we go back to those fight or flight, freeze to fawn responses. And again, that's adrenaline kicking in. It's a normal bodily response because when one feels threatened, you're going to help yourself and defend yourself. So if you're going to be attacked by a bear, I would imagine you would prefer to not die. So you're going to fight for your life, right? Or run away. I'm just using that as a simple example, but it's a natural bodily reaction. But staying in that state constantly is not healthy. It's the same thing when you think about someone in the military and, they're at war, okay? They're constantly on guard, constantly paying attention to their surroundings because they have to, because their life is threatened and their survival is important. So they're maintaining a high level of what we call hypervigilance, paying attention to your surroundings, constantly on alert, and afraid that something bad is about to happen. Okay, that's hypervigilance. So that will impact the body, right? Mind, body, action, thoughts, feelings, action. It's all connected. It's all intertwined. That's actually an intervention that I use with my clients, and I'll share that. But I have them draw a triangle. And this is based on a past certification that I received. It's called Trauma-Based Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, CBT. I received that certification probably 10 years ago. But it's to identify and assist in understanding the mind and body connection. So I have my clients write it, because when you write things, it helps it be imprinted in your brain and you remember. Okay, that's another reason why it's useful to journal and to write, because it helps get it out, it helps processing, and then it helps in your memory, so it sticks in your head. So I have my clients do a triangle, and I tell them, you're not being graded. It's just for your use, because that's all that it is. It's just for their brain to see this as a tangible thing so they can literally see it and understand it rather than me just talking about it. So they draw the triangle, and then I have them write thoughts on one corner, feelings on another corner, action on another corner. And then we take the thoughts and we identify that as your mind. Your feelings are spirit, and the action is your body. So how's it reacting in your body? So mind, body, spirit, thoughts, feelings, action. It's all connected. It's all intertwined. When you can learn to be the master of your mind, you can master anything. So then I have them identify a negative thought. What is something that you say to yourself? What is something that you're afraid of? If it has to do with trauma, we'll identify a negative thought about the trauma. And I usually just start with one thought. So I have them write the thought down, and then where the feelings or spirit, right? Spirit communicating with you, giving you cues as to how to navigate, right? Oh, I feel scared. I feel anxious. I feel ashamed. I feel guilty. Okay, so we're looking at the feeling, anger, sadness, guilt, shame. How are you feeling when you think about that negative thought? What is the emotion that comes up? And then I have them talk about the reaction. Okay, what happens in your body? How do you respond? So when you think about that thought and you feel a certain way, how is it impacting you? How is it affecting you? Is it causing you to have panic? What are the indicators or the cues or triggers that's going on internally? So it assists in helping with awareness into the body and gaining insight and understanding how what you feel causes your body to react. So this is another place where I talk about how important tears are, because tears are an expression of your soul, right? It's important to cry. And a lot of times people want to stuff that down too, and they don't want to deal with it. But when the emotion comes up to surface, we have to release it. So what are you doing? What is the action? Are you journaling? Are you talking to a friend? Are you going for a walk? Are you getting in nature? Or are you sleeping all day? Are you isolating? Are you withdrawing? Are you shutting down? So this is where I try to help my clients identify what their role is and what we can do to bring in more positive, healthier ways of coping. So here we are again, back with coping. Okay, we can't stop the feelings. If we had no feelings, we would be robots. The feelings are indicators of what's going on. Are you at a wedding and you're overwhelmed with emotion and your heart is full of love? Okay, that's the feeling. Or are you saying such mean and hurtful things that you're beating yourself up, and then you're doing a downward spiral into an entire world of negativity? Okay, but this is up to you, not me. That's saying you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I can open the door, but you've got to walk through. And this is the work that we talk about in counseling. This is what we're discussing when I say it's up to you to want to make a commitment to yourself and to commit to change. So I'm just going to bring out some symptoms and look at the specific things that we want to address in assessing whether or not we're looking at generalized anxiety, social anxiety? Is it just like, are you just anxious and it's like normal anxiety, right? Test anxiety is normal. Feeling anxious when you're up at a podium and you're going to speak, so many people get anxious and nervous when they're going to do public speaking. Okay, all of these things, that's normal anxiety. Okay, but chronic anxiety is when we're looking at more of the length of time, right? How long is it lasting for? So I want to look at anxiety, and then I'm going to look at panic. And my next episode will be on trauma. We'll look at specific symptoms of trauma and how we kind of come to an understanding whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder, acute stress reaction. Is it chronic trauma or acute, like in acute short-term, chronic long-term? So let's look at these symptoms, and I'm just going to run through them. And some of the symptoms you'll find that will overlap with some of the symptoms for depression. And when I get to the episode on eating disorders, you're going to see, I'm going to kind of help you understand that even the symptoms of depression and anxiety actually fall under the umbrella of the eating disorder. So the primary issue is an eating disorder, and then we have symptoms of anxiety and depression. So that's kind of where my head is at. I do want to touch on some other areas too. But my next episode will be focusing on symptoms of trauma. So when I'm with my client, I just ask them, tell me yes or no. And oftentimes, because this is the last part of my assessment and I'm looking at time frames, sometimes I have another client immediately after. So sometimes I kind of have to rush through this a little bit. And it's not to not take the time, but I usually spend about an hour to an hour and a half. It's a good amount of time to do an assessment. And I'm going to just kind of like blatantly say this too. Therapists and psychiatrists that have been doing this long enough can pretty much diagnose an individual within almost 15 minutes. And I'm not saying that, we're like these, individuals that like have all this knowledge and that we know everything. I'm just saying there's certain things that we can kind of identify. And I'm just going to kind of share this too. I had a psychiatrist that I worked with, Dr. Vinuela, excellent doctor. And I remember him telling me, I used to sit in with him when he would do the psychiatric evaluations when I worked on the psych unit. And that's a whole nother story too. Holy cow, I totally forgot about all that shit. But I think I went out with him and we not like out, but like I whatever. I'm pretty positive he was interested in wanting something with me, and he was married. And I don't even want to get into all that, but like I did have drinks with him, but that was it. Like we went to a Chili's and we had a couple of margaritas, and then I went home. I'm not getting involved in all of that at that time, and that's definitely not appropriate, and it's not appropriate of him either. So this was years ago. I mean, we're talking probably, I don't know, it's got to be 15 years ago. I don't even know if he's alive. I have no idea if he's even still in practice, but whatever. So lots of stuff going on personally, but excellent doctor. And he would say to me, when I feel like I want to jump over the desk and like choke someone, not literally in the literal sense. Like I feel like I just want to he could feel internally that he was getting agitated and irritable, and he just wanted to like smack him. Okay. So I'm just kind of like saying very bluntly, but that was an indication that person probably had borderline personality disorder. So it was just kind of funny. And I know that saying that out loud, that probably doesn't sit too well with people, but most psychiatrists and counselors can identify what's going on within 15 minutes of sitting down in front of someone, observing. So you obviously were picking up on body cues, eye contact, their affect within their face, how their facial expressions are, how they're speaking, rapid speech, or sometimes even not even speaking at all. But I just wanted to kind of share that. So When we're looking at anxiety, you're going to find that these things are going to overlap. So the first symptom that we look at is feeling restless. So having a hard time resting, you kind of feel like you have to just keep on moving. Restless, like when people are like shaking their leg constantly, right? Fatigued, tired. Are you feeling tired throughout the day? Difficulty concentrating. Sometimes people will think that their issues of concentration or feeling scattered or disorganized is ADHD, but it also can be anxiety. Irritability. Are you feeling irritable more days than not? Muscle tension. Are your muscles tight? Do you feel tightness in your shoulders? Do you feel like it's difficult to relax? And are you having difficulty sleeping? So we want to look at disturbed sleep. I find often that people tell me that have anxiety, they have a hard time shutting down their mind. Like they have a hard time quieting the mind. And it's not really about quieting the mind. It's more about taking control of the thoughts and not feeding into those particular thoughts. So I use another technique, and I talk about allowing the thoughts to be visually seeing them float away as clouds. So we recognize the thought and we allow it to float away. You can literally visualize your thought floating away, okay? So again, this is a tool and a technique that assists in learning how to master the mind. So recognizing the thought, identifying, is this a healthy thought or a not healthy thought? Is it helpful or not helpful? And if it's not helpful, then we don't want to fuel it. We don't want to feed into it. Okay, I use a simple example. I'm hungry. So you have a thought, I'm hungry. And then you have other thoughts on top of that. What am I going to eat? What's in the refrigerator? Do I need to go to the grocery store? I don't feel like cooking, blah, 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 right? So it becomes a story. So you're creating a story on top of one thought. Why? Acknowledge the thought and either do something about it or don't. So either get up and cook something so you can eat, or keep doing what it is that you're doing. And then we let the thought go. Okay, this is where we got to learn to not allow thoughts to control you. You are in charge. You are the creator, and you are the one that decides and determines which thoughts you are going to fuel. So I want to look at symptoms of panic, and I'm going to share my story of the very first panic attack that I ever had. And then I'll probably be wrapping up this episode. So, symptoms of panic: heart pounding faster, sweating, trembling, so like trembling or shaking, like hands shaking, chest pain. And I'll say, it feels as if an elephant is sitting on your chest, like it's heavy. Are you feeling dizzy or faint, like you're going to pass out? Issues of choking. Sometimes there's a lump in your throat that you can't swallow. Numbness or tingling. Feeling nauseous or having an upset stomach, like you're going to throw up. Having chills or hot flashes. Shortness of breath or difficulty breathing or difficulty catching your breath. And then we have fear. Do you have a fear of losing control, a fear of going crazy, or a fear of dying? And then derealization and depersonalization. So these are kind of like those dissociative feelings. Some people say that they felt like they were floating, or that they had almost like they were out of their body. Okay? Those are symptoms of panic. So I'll share with you, I apologize, let me back up. I also use my scale, and 0 to 10. So I'll say 0, how anxious or scared, nervous, or worried are you right now? So it's in this moment. How are you feeling right now? So how anxious are you? 0, I'm not anxious at all. 10, I'm having a panic attack. Okay, and then I have them tell me where they are with their number. That helps give me an idea as to how they're feeling in regards to their anxiety. So I just wanted to touch on that. I use scales a lot. I use scales with how you feel about yourself, loving yourself, 0, I don't love myself at all. 10, I love myself so much that nothing, really bothers me, but that's not even realistic. And we have to remember, typically often we don't have 0 anxiety and we don't have 0 depression. Often there's still a 1 or a 2. And again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, that anxiety is normal. Okay, we all have anxiety. I live with anxiety almost throughout the entire day. And I have clients and they talk with me a lot about how they're unable to function, difficulty working, it impacts their relationships. And so when we get to those levels, I'm not a proponent of medication, and definitely as a holistic healer, I would implore using more natural alternative techniques or different medicines. Again, these are things that you need to discuss with your own doctor. I'm not a doctor and I'm not going to discuss medication. But if it comes to the point that you're not able to function, then we might need to use a medicine to assist in getting some of the anxiety under control so you can learn the coping skills to use. I took Lexapro and Klonopin back when I was, 20, I was getting divorced, so I was probably 30. So again, 15 years ago. And I took Lexapro for about 6 months, and I took the Klonopin, and I think I touched on this before. They gave me an adjustment disorder diagnosis with some forms of anxiety and depression. And again, adjustment disorder is adjusting from change in your life, and I was getting divorced. And I talked about this before. I was crying at work. I was scattered. I was having a hard time functioning. So I sought out help. I took the Lexapro for about 6 months. I only took the Klonopin maybe for about 6 weeks. Because once that Lexapro kind of kicked in and I was at a good therapeutic dose, I didn't need the Klonopin as a crutch anymore because I was using the skills, and I was in counseling then too. So we want to look at the combination of counseling with medicine. And I don't want people to get dependent on medication, and I don't want people to become dependent on counseling. Okay, eventually you're supposed to say goodbye. Okay, there isn't supposed to be this ongoing years and years, 10, 15 years. When people tell me they've been in therapy for 15 years, 10 years, sometimes even, I've even heard longer. Okay, something's wrong. Okay, and any therapist out there that tells you that, they can just stay with you for the rest of your life, they're doing you a disservice. Okay, you're not supposed to be in therapy for your entire life. And even with trauma, it's still something that can be resolved. And there's the right therapist can help you through the process of healing. So we should not be keeping clients for years and years. Okay, that's a problem. And it's one of two things are happening. There's only 2 fucking options that are occurring with why an individual is staying in therapy longer than needed. The first reason is the therapist isn't doing their job. And the second reason is the client's not doing the work. Those are the only 2 reasons why somebody would stay in therapy for years and years. Okay? Again, that is also being used as a crutch. medication can be used as a crutch, right? Xanax is the worst medicine to take. And again, I know I'm not the doctor, so do not take this information and try to use this to form your own decisions about your own medication. Okay, I'm not at all saying this, but I worked with a psychiatrist. Okay, I've worked with psychiatrists my entire career, so I've gained knowledge about psychopharmacology. I'm not a dummy. And the psychiatrist that I used to work with, different one, and I'm so upset that I can't remember her name. She moved to New Mexico, and she was an amazing woman, and she gave me this little like handmade box thing. I still have it. It's just adorable. Very sweet woman, and super smart. And a couple of things, so I'm just going to throw this out there. She would talk about how it was a radical idea that she would say, if we just legalized all drugs, like literally all drugs, including heroin, then we would be able to help people, with drug problems. And her idea was that, like, if you think about this, okay, if we legalized heroin, are you going to go out and use heroin? No. The person that would normally use heroin if it wasn't legal, like if it's illegal, right? Because people are out there using heroin. People are out there, taking Oxycontin. People are out there smoking crack. Okay, so you're still doing the drug, but it's not legal. So her point was, if we legalize the drug, the same people that would be doing the drugs are going to either be doing it legally or illegally, so it's irrelevant. I'm not going to do heroin. Okay, I have no reason to do heroin. If it was legalized, I would never touch it with a 10-foot pole. Not interested. No, thank you. But her idea was that recreationally, some people can actually do drugs and it's not a problem. Okay, not everybody that does cocaine becomes dependent. Not everybody that smokes pot becomes dependent. Okay, there's a difference between abuse and dependency. So she would say, if individuals that became dependent on drugs, then we could use rehab and treatment to help them, instead of sticking them in jail because they committed a crime of having illegal drugs. So do you see how we're just like perpetuating the cycle? So she would have these wonderful, like crazy ideas, and these were like radical ideas. But she was an amazing doctor, and she talked with me about Xanax and how Xanax is like chasing your tail. Okay, it is a horrible medication to use for anxiety, because all that it will do is cause panic and anxiety to become worse. So like a dog chasing its tail. So you're feeling anxious, you're feeling like you're going to possibly have a panic attack. We're having some indicators or symptoms that it's about to happen. You pop a pill, you're good for a couple hours, 3-4 hours later, here comes your anxiety again, and you're back to your panic. So it's constantly chasing your tail. So this is where I'm talking about medication as a crutch. Okay, we shouldn't be using medications to alleviate all of the anxiety, so that way you're not using your coping mechanisms and coping skills. So anxiety is normal. We all have it, and we do have to learn how to deal with it. And turning to a medication and popping a pill is not going to be your answer. So there are other options. I talked about essential oils. I mean, go and exercise. Go exert some of that emotion and that feeling. Okay? There are things that you can do rather than turning to medicines, and especially Xanax. It's a controlled substance, and what happens is you start out at what? 1/4 milligram, 1/2 milligram, and then you need 1 milligram every couple hours, and then you're into 2 milligrams, and then when you're at 4 milligrams and stuff, Xanax causes serious issues with memory, cognition. It's really not good for you. And, and I'll admit, I took Xanax recreationally a couple of times. And I remember taking, I split a 4 milligram. And this was 20 years ago. Okay. This was just years and years ago. And this is my podcast, and I'm being straight with you, and I'm transparent with you. And, this is just shit that's happened. So I remember having a couple of glasses of wine, and I took a 2 milligram. I split a football, what they would call, right? 4 milligram Xanax with my husband at the time. And, we split the Xanax, and I drank a beer, had a glass of wine, and I literally blacked out. So I don't even remember what happened. So that's not good. Okay. And that's what I'm talking about, is that's not healthy for somebody to be in that state, and to feel like they have to have Xanax to help them calm down, because it literally causes serious damage in your brain. So this is why I'm here to try to talk about other skills. Okay. So my panic attack, the very first one, happened after Captain Mike died. And I remember getting the phone call from my girlfriend, Ren. And she had told me that he died, and I was in denial. And I was like, no, I just talked to him last night. He's not dead, blah, blah, blah. And I called his friend, Scott, that he lived with. And I had already gone to my appointment, and I had told them that I needed to cancel my appointment, and that I needed to go take care of some things, and that somebody had passed away, and then I would be in touch. And I called my boss too. I remember calling her, and I told her that I was leaving and I was going home, and she was so sweet and kind. And I remember she allowed me to take 3 days of bereavement, which typically is only for family. But she allowed me to take those 3 days so that way I could kind of collect. And she actually came to me. I'll never forget that. She came to my house, and I remember being in shock and not really together. I couldn't find my purse. I didn't really know what was going on. Like, it was just a hot fucking mess. And she brought me to my girlfriend's, which was only about 1.5 miles down from my house. And she literally dropped me off there and was like, you need to hang out with her and spend some time with her. But I had the panic attack, and I didn't know that's what was happening until I think maybe even years later. And I was like, whoa, that's what occurred. Okay. So the body reacted, right? Thoughts, feelings, action. So I remember driving, and I had just hung up the phone, and Scott was like, come here now. He's like, just come, Jess. It's okay. You can come be here. And I had to go because I didn't know how to handle what was happening. And the first indication for me that a panic attack is about to come on is that I get tingling in my hands. And that's something that we talk about, is your extremities. Okay. Do you feel numbness or tingling in your extremities? So hands and feet. And sometimes people will tell me tingling and numbness in their face, like it, in the mouth area, in their cheeks, like it just feels numb. Okay. So I had the tingling in my hands, and I remember like gripping the wheel, and I had that out of body experience. Like I didn't feel like myself. Like I felt like I was floating, and heart was pounding. Hands were sweating. I was feeling, I get chills. Okay. So sometimes people will feel like they have a fever, and it's not a fever. Okay. It's just the body's reaction. So I get that. I get chills. Literally, sometimes my teeth will start chattering, and I start shaking, that my body is literally convulsing. I'm not having a seizure, but I'm shaking. Okay, that's the trembling. And then I don't have the fears of losing control, fear of going crazy, or the fear of dying. Okay. But I have the shortness of breath. I have the sweating. I have the heart palpitations. I had the chest pain, like an elephant was sitting on my stomach. The shaking, trembling, nauseous, chills, tingling. Okay, those are my symptoms. And that happened immediately after I had called Scott and had told them that I was coming. And I don't even remember driving. And I mean, I was a half hour away, and because I used to have to travel for work, and I did community mental health, and I used to drive all over the place. And I remember like just being like out of touch. and I was disassociating, like I was floating. I have no idea how I even managed to get to his place. And then I don't even remember driving back to my house. And I really don't even know how my old boss, who literally just texted me right now as I'm doing this podcast, her mom died last night, or I'm sorry, it might have been 2 nights ago, but she contacted me last night and had told me that her mom passed away. She just texted me and I told her to reach out to me if she needed anything. And ironically, I was going to message her before I started this podcast. And do you see how synchronicities, and when you're connected with people, that you're just there for them. I don't even remember her coming. Like, I don't remember. Like, I remember, I wasn't eating. Like, I was in shock, right? That's what happens. Your body goes in shock. Why? Because it's protecting itself, right? Your mind is protecting you because of the trauma. There's amnesia that happens because of trauma. So this just kind of segues into the next episode. I'm kind of slowing down a little bit with some of these episodes, and I got a lot happening. I have my regular job. I have my evening appointments. I've got 2 private clients. So I'm just staying really busy. I've uploaded these podcasts to YouTube. So my YouTube channel, Reverend JJ. So you can find my podcast all over the place: Spotify, Apple, Google. I'm on Wave. It's on YouTube. A lot of my videos are also on my website. So you can find me, JJ. What the hell is my website now? I don't even remember. jjlotustherapy.com. Sorry. But a lot going on. Reach out if you are needing some guidance, and if this resonates with you and you feel that you want to have some continued support and you need somebody to talk to. It's why I'm here. I may have room for like 1 or 2 clients. Just reach out. And I'm still teaching yoga, and I have meditations. Lots of things happening, and I want to be here to assist and guide and heal. So Reverend JJ, signing off. Namaste.